I had always had dreams of becoming a fighter pilot, but my eyesight wasn't quite right. I mean, yeah, there's quite a variation between a fighter pilot and accountant. I appreciate that, but I suppose Top Gun also weighed in my mind as well. There wasn't an equivalent accountancy film that got me into accountancy. I'm no Tom Cruise, unfortunately. My name's Steve and I'm Financial Controller for Higgs & Sons. Essentially, I'm responsible for the financial health of the business, so I'm responsible for all the accounting functions and all the control environment of Higgs & Sons. So when I was in my teenage years, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. I like numbers and I was interested in business. So I kind of had a bit of an idea that, I wanted to keep in terms of those interests going while I chose my subjects. So maths was good, so I liked economics and business studies. So I kind of kept my options open throughout that period. And then it was only when I went and actually had a brief job in a call centre where they said, would you help out in the finance team? Which is where I started to get an inkling that I might like this. So, I carried on through university and ultimately decided to become a chartered accountant. And that's how I got into it really, just had a bit of a taste through work experience. I actually did a finance degree and it was important for me to keep those options open. It didn't mean I had to work in a finance team. But I could become an accountant, I could go into banks, etc. All the things that I felt were, playing to my strong points. There's like the standard accounting module, but there was economics, so I enjoyed the business element. It had some cash flow modelling, which is a bit of what I do now, report writing. So there was lots of different modules that kind of have now been able to creep into what I do at the moment, which is really useful. I kept on my eye out in the last year for accountancy jobs because I felt that, again, even though I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, having an accountancy degree would allow you to have another layer on your CV as a screening process. There were a lot of people who had degrees, but there were less people who were accountants, and so that's why I moved into accountancy. The transition was going to lots of interviews with accountancy firms. I was lucky enough to be offered a role, and then you work really hard to get your qualification to be able to get in and start your training contract with an accountancy firm. It was a 3-year contract and you work in the workplace for a period of time, and then you might have a 2-week study period or a 1-week study period. And then after 6 months you'd have an exam, but all the time you were working, but then you had set periods of time to be able to study. Worked best for me. You don't have to do that as an accountant. You can do day release if it suits you, or you can have bigger blocks, break it down. You can do it on weekends if you wanted to as well. There's lots of different ways to become an accountant. There are exams, they're hard exams, they're tough exams, but when you get to the other side you get a real sense of achievement. And also you get a recognised qualification as a result as well. But yes, a lot of exams, a lot of coursework as well, but very much exam focused. Well, the journey with the accountancy role was you do your training at the same time doing the exams, and then you qualify and you suddenly become a qualified accountant. I was working for a smaller firm, and then I thought I want to test my skills with a bigger firm, so I moved to a much bigger accountancy firm, which exposed me to a lot more bigger clients, a lot more complex work, and he's very nervous at the time to be able to make that move, because you do question whether you can do that. However, my advice was, if you're not 100% sure you can do it, have a go at doing it, because you don't know till you go and do that. And so, despite it being a taxing time, to use a pun, I certainly found that was a real good career move for me, because it opened a lot more doors. So after having been in the accountancy, in the larger accountancy firm, I then was able to look for secondments in other areas, which I found more interesting. And I went and worked in mergers and acquisitions, which is where people buy and sell companies. That was very exciting, although very hard work, because it's all hours, it could be over weekends, etc. So, but ultimately, go back to when I was in the finance team of that hotel booking, I felt that working within a finance team, within a business, was always where I wanted to be. And so after I got the experience in the bigger firms, I then made a move to an industry role, which is basically you become the accountant in the business, rather than being working for a firm of accountants who go into lots of other businesses. Well, there's the technical aspects which we've kind of covered, which you get trained in your accountancy exams, etc. And that's really a given when you're going for roles in accountancy. So I think the more important element, or equally important element, is the soft skills part of the role. In particular, the soft skills I mean by that is the ability to be able to converse with all layers of a firm, all senior people, board of directors, heads of department, and all the way down to people who are just coming in through the job through apprentices. I think the way you deal with those people, the way you come across, particularly in interviews, I think it tends to find that it's 50% on your background, but it's 50% on how you come across immediately. And I always used to do a test, whereas if I could put somebody who I was interviewing in front of the chairman of the business, if I was comfortable I could do that, that would go a long way to putting them towards the job. So you've got to be able to have the people skills as well as the technical skills in this job. That's a very difficult question, because my day can vary. You tend to find, if you're working in a firm, in the accountancy firm, that it's on a monthly cycle. So month end is a term in finance that's used a lot, and so you get to the end of the month and people want to know how the results are getting on, and they want to see the numbers effectively. So that's always a very busy time in finance. So the end of the month is when I'm kind of looking at the numbers, explain to people what the numbers are, talking through with management, with board of directors, etc., how the company is doing. Then there's other elements which in project work, so new systems are coming on, I get involved in that. I have a team of 12 people, and you have to manage the team, work with the team, so there's obviously management duties involved in that. So the days are very varied. In my role, I get to see and work with a whole range of people throughout the firm. So it might be in Higgs, the management partner, or the equivalent is a CEO, or it might be working with apprentices on a day-to-day basis, looking at their work. And so it's a very varied job, meeting lots of varied people, and that's probably one of the parts of the job I really enjoy. I like to be able to present some numbers to people in a way that they understand, but you have a varying degree of people, so you have to ensure you present those numbers to the right people in the right way. So when you get that right and people walk away and go, I really appreciate that, Steve, I hadn't realised you could do that, or I hadn't realised this particular issue was happening, then that's a nice feeling to get, because you're realising you're helping them in their role to continue their improvement in their role. I think one of the most challenging aspects is the deadline nature. If you've got a deadline and you know it's immovable, then there's a lot of pressure on you to achieve that deadline. That might mean working extra hours. It might need you to prioritise your workload. So that is a real challenge, and in finance there's always deadlines to achieve. I think one of the challenges when you first move into a job and you want to progress is that you start to have or get offered line management responsibilities, and if you've never had that before, that's always a real challenge. So I think you have to show quite a lot of empathy to other people to understand how to manage that person. And I felt that was one of the challenging parts of progressing through the career, is the ability to work with and motivate other people in your team. We work with HR, human resources, we work with IT, we work with marketing, but as a law firm, one of the things I really enjoy is being able to work with the lawyers around the business. So that's one of the benefits of finance, is that you're not in an ivory tower sat away and parked just doing numbers. You actually do and get involved in a lot of other areas of the business. In fact, most areas of the business, because most areas have some type of financial impact. When you first start out, you've just qualified, you've got a lot of technical skills. So my employees or any employee would then want to utilise those technical skills because they're fresh. So you find you're very much applying those skills pretty much from day one. As you develop through your career, you tend to pick up on new skills. So the ability to work with people more senior than you, to be able to time manage properly, to prioritise workloads, and also to kind of motivate and work with other people. So those are the things that you start to build on, not just your technical skills. And those are the things that I've found, particularly the softer skills, that's helped me develop my career. One of the real benefits of being in finance, and particularly if you want to train as an accountant, is that once you get through certain levels, it automatically moves you up through the business if you're willing to take that on. So from a career prospects point of view, they're endless really. You can get right up to the top to finance director, which is almost the top of the tree from a finance point of view. But if you were to look at a lot of CEOs in FTSE 100 companies, you tend to find that a lot of their people were finance directors before they become CEOs. So I think it opens a lot of doors. You don't have to stay in finance. You can go and work in IT but linked to finance. You can go operationally in any business, but having that finance background, and particularly having some commercial awareness, is relevant to any part of a business. So it gives you really good grounding skills, not just for accountancy, but also to develop other areas of the business. Being an accountant gives you a lot of potential to work anywhere in the world, because any company generally of a certain size will need an accountant or will need a finance function. So you needn't work in city centres, but you could easily work abroad. Their skills are transferable, or you could work around the corner like I do. If I was going back, I won't tell you how many years, but if I was going back to where I was, I went on a computer and put a load of skill sets in, and it came up with a very spurious job, management consultant or something like that. And I think I would prefer to be able to speak to more people in an area that I was interested in, to be able to understand what's involved. I don't think when I was younger I had enough exposure to that. So I wasn't able to speak to lawyers, or I wasn't able to speak to accountants or fighter pilots, to be able to understand what's involved in the role, and are those skill sets relevant to me and what I like to get out of a job. So a bit more dialogue with people who are doing the jobs is something I really value, rather than putting a lot of attributes into a computer and it coming out with something I didn't really understand. I always felt that I had to choose subjects that was the norm and what I expected, and actually there was some areas where I really enjoyed doing, and perhaps I thought, well, no, I'm not sure that will help me in the future. But my advice would be, if you're good at something and you enjoy it, you'll tend to find that the exam results will follow, and actually you'll enjoy the schooling or the A-levels even more if you're doing subjects you really enjoy. So if you're good at them and you're a good person and you've got those soft skills that we talked about before, those will come despite what qualifications you've got. So I would go back and perhaps think, I really enjoy this subject. I'm going to carry on and do this subject through, despite people might tell you, but would that get you what you want to get? I would suggest you still go and do it and enjoy it.